Hello and welcome to our People to People 2025 Sales Market Update. I'm Sharna Bryant, Permanent Senior Consultant here in our People to People Parramatta, New South Wales office. On today's show, we'll be covering what key trends are shaping sales in 2025. We'll be joined by Danny Merrigan, the Account Director at 𝐿𝐴, and Sam Olorenshaw, Co-founder and General Manager at CarbonInvoice, to unpack the key trends shaping the sales landscape across Australia and New Zealand in 2025. We'll cover what's driving the most change in sales, are ambitious hiring plans on track, what do professionals need to succeed in 2025, and what will shape sales teams by 2030. But first, let's take a look at what's really happening in the sales recruitment market right now. The sales industry across Australia and New Zealand is poised for continued growth in 2025, with 74% of teams planning to expand. However, this expansion is being met with notable challenges in attracting and retaining talent. There's still strong demand for experienced professionals, particularly in roles like business development managers and key account managers. Hiring managers continue to report difficulties sourcing top candidates, and more than half of sales teams still feel under-resourced. On top of that, AI adaptation is reshaping sales functions, with 80% of teams now using it to improve efficiency. Stats show that this shift is redefining the skills employers are looking for. So CRM optimization, 48%, AI-assisted content writing, 43%, and sales data visualization, 36%, are now emerging as must-have competencies. In response to this shift, businesses are refining their recruitment strategies with a stronger focus on transparency. 68% now communicate KPIs and commissions upfront during the interview process. When it comes to attracting talent, competitive benefits are playing a central role. KPI bonuses, 57%, flexible work arrangements, 53%, and career development opportunities, 50%, top the list. Employers are also offering better car-related perks and uncapped commission structures to differentiate themselves. Still, 33% of hiring this year is being driven by replacements rather than new roles, suggesting that turnover is a major factor, even though 58% of organisations report stable staff retention. Looking forward, the focus will likely remain on long-term strategies, with AI now a staple of the sales landscape and skills requirements continuing to evolve. Businesses that can clearly communicate their value proposition, from growth opportunities to structured incentives, will be in the best position to secure and retain top talent in 2020. All the insights we've just shared and the conversations we're about to have are drawn directly from our 2025 Employment and Salary Trends report. This comprehensive report is built off thousands of survey responses from job seekers and employers across Australia and New Zealand and the UK. It looks at the latest workplace hiring and job seeker trends and can help you and your business make more informed decisions. If you'd like a deeper dive into salaries, benefits, and workplace trends across your market, you can request your copy by scanning the QR code on the screen at any point during this live stream, or click the link in the comments below. To break down more about what is happening in the market, we are joined first today by Danny Merrigan, Account Director at 𝐿𝐴. 𝐿𝐴 is Australia's leading online employment marketplace, connecting millions of job seekers with employers across Australia, New Zealand, and the Asia-Pacific region. 𝐿𝐴 has been consistently recognised as one of Australia's top 10 places to work in technology and continues to lead the market through its commitment to excellence and innovation. Welcome, Danny.
Hey, Sharna, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you, pleasure. So let's get right into the questions. If you can tell me, what have you and your team experiences been over the last 12 months, and have you seen any changes in turnover or retention for sales teams?
Yeah, look, it's obviously at 𝐿𝐴 we cover all markets and all sectors. So I might start with just giving you a bit of context of how the broader market are seeing things, and then how the sales landscape and environment compares to that. But like the overarching headline is like the market's, it's quite fragmented. There are pockets where there's a lot of growth. There's pockets where there's quite a bit of decline. And generally across the board, what we're seeing is like application rates to 𝐿𝐴 are probably up 22% year on year, as far as a market overview stat is concerned. So there is a bit of a discrepancy from where the demand is and where the applications are in certain pockets of the market. But when you look at sales as a whole, I looked at the stats this morning. It's alarmingly consistent for the past not alarmingly is a poor choice of word, but it's very stable over the past 18 months. So you could almost draw a line to where the volume of demand is, or volume of ads are, from April back about 18 months or so. And where we're seeing application rates, they are quite high. They're about 20 odd %, kind of compared to what it was last year. So there is a bit of activity out there. What we generally see as far as what it means actually for customers and clients is there's a bit of noise with that. Like you're getting candidates through the door, but you're not necessarily getting the right candidates through the door. So it's that culture fit is quite hard to nail and get right. And someone who's got the right motivations and is the right fit for your business, we're seeing a lot of that. Plus that leads into, if there's a lot of applications, where they're coming from. So there is quite a bit of churn out there at times. So what we try and gravitate back towards is what's the general theme of why people are moving, and that kind of gives us an indicator of what people should be doing to retain their staff or looking to attract staff. And similar to the stats that you've got, the main ones that we generally see, the top motivators are, it's still salary, number one, is which is pretty consistent. It makes a lot of sense considering where the macroeconomic trends that we're in and where the cost of living crisis is currently at. But interestingly, when you dig into that and say, like, what does that actually mean, or what do people talk about in salary? A salary review period is, I think it's now the most important thing people look for when they're looking for a new job on Seek. Which is quite, like, because a lot of advertisers can't speak about it, don't speak about it, which is an interesting insight, I find, because, sometimes people don't want to move, but they have to move out of necessity because they need that pay rise, because the world is a bit more expensive now. So we're seeing more and more of that. So salary is becoming, like, so key as far as a retention strategy, as far as an attraction standpoint as well.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think ultimately it's about the conversation that employees can have around what that looks like, what that timeline looks like. Their current employers should be doing it and they aren't. And if they can have salary increases in 6 months or 12 months, or it doesn't need to be necessarily a salary increase now. That's what I'm seeing at the desk level anyway. So what have been the biggest opportunities then? Because you've talked about the challenges there. So what are the biggest opportunities? What roles are you seeing coming up a lot on Seek?
Yeah, just on your point, which I think is a very good one on the salary review period, the language we use, it's a review. It's not necessarily guaranteeing you're getting a pay rise. They just want the conversation. Just let's have a talk about money. Can we do anything? What's it need to be? What's it look like? As far as opportunity is concerned, look, the Seek stats, they are pretty consistent. There's always a demand for new business development. That's kind of the pocket of sales roles that we generally see a little bit of an increase in. And then again, that account management role too. They're the two that we're seeing a bit of growth in. Interestingly, some of the support roles, we're not seeing as much growth in those pockets. And again, which are themes I'm sure we're going to come across as well. It's the disruption of AI in sales and what that means and what that looks like nowadays compared to what it has been in the couple of years gone by.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And what about senior level roles? So
senior
sales
level
managers, national sales managers.
Yeah, look, it's again, it's pretty flat, to be honest. Like I don't really have a nugget there to go, look, there's a huge increase or a huge decline. It's pretty consistent, which ultimately, in my opinion, is quite a good thing. We just haven't seen the churn at that level. It's more the field sales roles we've seen a lot more in. And yeah, that new business development space, that's kind of where we're seeing a lot of churn and activity and growth. But yeah, that seniority level, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you've seen, but yeah, it's pretty stable from our perspective.
I'd agree. I definitely agree. And there are people who do want to move roles in that space, but they'll only move for a lot of other factors beyond salary. So it really changes once I think you get to that level.
Yeah, it's a long cycle too.
Yeah. And so you've mentioned that you're seeing those salary expectations rise and they're shifting. Do you think that that's going to continue? Do you think that trend will continue, or do you think that will stabilize out?
Yeah, well, actually, I had a look at this morning. So the overarching numbers on Seek are the salary year on year. So if you think of every industry, there's a 3.6% increase in salary year on year. So that's everything across the board. Sales have seen a 4% increase year on year. And then if we look at the last quarter, it's 1.1. So if you extrapolate that out, it kind of don't think it's too far of a stretch to say it may hit north of 4% increase year on year in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that on the jobs coming across. The salaries are really, people are moving for lateral salary moves. I'm seeing that a lot. Okay, wonderful. So I think we'll move and we'll bring in our next guest. So thank you for those insights. We'll bring in Sam Olorenshaw, who's the General Manager and co-founder of CarbonInvoice. CarbonInvoice is a climate-focused software program designed to make carbon action accessible and straightforward. By integrating with accounting tools like Xero and MYOB, it enables businesses to measure their carbon footprint and facilitates the funding of native tree planting projects in Australia and New Zealand, allowing companies to mitigate emissions and contribute to local biodiversity. So that's wonderful. Thank you for joining us today, Sam. Sorry, I got your name wrong twice, I think, but Olorenshaw. So let's go over those questions with you.
Oh,
so
good,
what
Sharna,
have you
thank
and
you.
your team, what have your experiences been over the last 12 months? And have you seen big changes in turnover or retention in your sales teams?
Yeah, so thanks for the slight pitch as well. So, and just for my context, so I'm out there doing and leading a B2B sales team myself. So, you know, spending a lot of time with other tech companies as well. And I guess I'd probably describe us as a little bit maverick, you know, early adopters, and AI is basically all that we're talking about. From a retention perspective, you know, actually across our peer group, it has been really good. And I think AI has actually played a big role in that. And I think the reason is that there's an opportunity for salespeople to both upskill and, you know, improve their performance and remuneration if the structure's right, and we'll get into that. So I think that's one piece, and I know that, you know, you and Danny were just touching on this, but we are also in a challenging economic backdrop, and I think, you know, there's not necessarily a hesitancy to switch, but certainly maybe proactively look for new roles. You know, I think people are maybe more interested in sort of not losing a dollar, and definitely what I'm seeing among our peer groups is that, you know, culture is everything, and you talked about things beyond salary. I think if you can provide that for your people, then really you'll be well placed, and maybe able to entice people for more than just dollars.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm actually hearing a lot. People are willing to move, as I said, for the same, in some cases less, if the culture is right. But culture is it's a big word, and it doesn't just mean I like having a laugh with the person sitting next to me. It's got a lot to do with psychological safety in the workplace. It's got a lot to do with growth planning, salary review processes, really transparent communication. So, I'd agree. And people are really savvy now when it comes to moving roles. I think that's because they moved a lot in 2022 and made some mistakes, and correcting that now. So, okay. And so what are you seeing as the biggest opportunities then? What are the opportunities in your space? What has AI really added to the team, and what are you seeing there?
Yeah, so I mean, again, we're back to AI already. I do think what I will say is it's a little bit trite to say that AI is eating all knowledge work. The concrete mental model that I like to use in sales is AI is delineating some of the core skills. So if you think about, you know, sales, there's sort of the humanistic skills and then the structured skills. And you and Danny talked about different sort of roles and seniority as well, and those skills potentially map to those. But if you think about structured skills for a salesperson, it's things like reading annual reports, figuring out pricing, you know, making proposals, where, we're seeing the real value now is in the humanistic skills.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've seen some crazy stories in the last year or two where, it's now profitable to have an individual giving sort of enterprise like, white glove sales at 10x the volume, because those structured skills are now mostly automated. So, those people are spending time doing what they're good at. And I think the companies that figure this out and do a good job are well placed. In your sort of coming questions, I've got a few specific ideas around this, but ultimately, we know that humans are looking for human connection, particularly in a world of AI. And so, at least at CarbonInvoice, what we're doing, and the biggest opportunity that we see, we're actually doubling down on things that might be seen as traditionally expensive. So, tree planting days, human-led cold calling, attending conferences, because ultimately those are the things that are very difficult to automate or replicate.
I think the sales market in particular has a good advantage here. It is really about those humanist skills, as you say, and if salespeople can adapt to AI and not resist AI, then not just the company, it's the salesperson themselves that really has to take to it and embrace it, and it will take all of those admin duties that they've been complaining about for the last 100 years or more. Take all of that off their desk, and they can focus on what they do best. So that's good. So, are you seeing talk about salary and the expectations and pay forecasts in your company, and what you're seeing there in 2025?
Yeah. So this is I think one of the most interesting points here, and you talked about sales having a natural advantage. So, and I think we're in a really interesting point here. So, behind software developers, anecdotally, I think salespeople are probably the best adopters of AI. Now, as I mentioned, I am operating with, vanguards and mavericks and early adopters and tech companies. So we might be a little bit naturally biased towards it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just think about it, right, a well understood concept is the concept of a 10x software developer, right? These are the unicorns that companies were always looking for to run their tech teams. Now, with sales, the natural advantage here is the compensation structure. And I think this is the key point that employers need to get right. So if you think about that 10x software developer or even a lawyer, being more efficient with AI, they can't necessarily demand 10x their salary, right? They might be able to, demand slightly above the market growth rate. But if you have a salesperson on uncapped commission, they've got a direct incentive to become more efficient and 10x their own pipeline. So, Danny mentioned salary being a main driver for people, I guess there's a technical question here. Do we delineate sort of commission from base salary? But sales does have an advantage here. So I actually think that's the message that people should take away is, think about the compensation for your salespeople and, make those huge results attainable to those, young, hungry, motivated folks. So yeah, that's probably the really interesting point here.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's the salient point, is you need to have them be attainable in this market. The other reason I'm seeing a lot of candidates move roles, senior to junior, is they've got a fine base salary, they've got great commissions, it's uncapped, but they're not hitting any of their targets. The market's shifted, they're not seeing a lot of safety in their workplace, and they want to leave. Whereas if they're clear, they're attainable, they're understood, and they're within the skill set that they're building towards, like skill set they already have, then I think that's great. But that is the challenge, I'm seeing a lot of lowball salaries and great commissions, and then that having a mismatch as well. So That maybe is a little different in the tech space, but certainly across other industries. Okay, so I'd like to bring you both back now to get a bit more of a broader view and some different perspectives on the market. So I'll start with you first, Danny. In our recent 2025 report, 74% of sales teams plan to grow. Are you seeing this at 𝐸𝐚𝐿, and are you expecting the same trend actually in 𝐸𝐸 rather than the job boards?
Stuff. Yeah, so I suppose, look, I can answer that both ways. Look, from a 𝐸𝐸 perspective, we generally don't predict the future of where it's going to go, what it looks like, but some of the data points I'd look at, I think it is interesting to go that the supply and demand are normally correlated. So if we're thinking we're getting 22% more supply into the market, but it's not affecting the demand, it kind of points that it's in a strong position, which is great and positive. And again, same with salary. If people are starting to pay more for these roles, like that's a good indicator we're in a good position. From a 𝐸𝐸 perspective, look, it's a growing company, it's a growing business. We're in 8 countries now, so the sales team at 𝐸𝐸 it's pretty stable, and the average tenure is quite good. So we don't have lots of churn, but I think there's going to be new created roles in the not too distant future as well. So exciting times ahead, I would reckon, and it seems to be on the upward.
Oh, that's good. That's a really good sign. And do you tend to find that increases throughout the year after the end of the financial year traditionally?
To be honest, like we kind of look at it more at a longer term view. Like a lot of the growth, I reckon, from 𝐸𝐸 is probably going to come from outside of Australia. They're trying to replicate some of the markets that, like the position that we're in now, and some of the tech that we've got now, and how we roll that out across the other countries. So some of it is hamstrung by tech. So depending on when that can happen and what's the best way for that to roll out. But no, I think it's actually, if we could do that last bit again, if that's an option. But yeah, so what we'll do is it's not necessarily done to a fin year or a certain time frame. Look, a lot of it is led by tech. So we'll follow the tech, get that bit in place first, and then see where the people fit in.
Yeah, what about
straight
you, Sam?
after that.
Yeah, probably kind of similar to you, I think, Danny. So as I said, firstly, things are really stable in our industry. I'm not seeing a lot of churn. And you had the stat there, 74% of sales teams planning to grow. So I would actually put myself and maybe my peers in the 26% that are not looking to grow. Now, we're absolutely looking to grow our businesses, and we are growing our businesses, but everything I've talked about today, we're just doing it with the same headcount. I'm seeing my peers, as I mentioned, 10x their own pipeline, just with the tools and efficiency that are available. So, yeah, I think, and then what else would I say? I mean, so probably then the question is, well, actually, the hiring sort of follows the growth rather than doing it in anticipation.
It's very promising, though, that you both can see growth in the future. I think that's great, and certainly what people want to hear, so that's great. All right, a 2025 report found learning and development to be the main retention factor across all functions. Why do you think there's been a decline? Though, actually, I might unpack that a little in a second. And how important is ongoing learning and training, training and development in your organisation and market? I think decline is probably not the right way to look at it. I think a flat approach to learning and development is probably more accurate. So I'll go to you first this time, Sam.
Yeah, so I mean, again, just from our perspective, I think in the tech industry, especially, we do have a lot of autonomy with our people. So, and what I mean by that, right? Autonomy to actually just do self-directed learning, experiment, tinker, be an engineer. And I think that probably plays into why retention has been good in our space as well. So I firstly think that's really important. Secondly, we have provided a dedicated AI framework internally to our teams at CarbonInvoice. And this is across the board, not just in sales. But firstly, as I said, we're given autonomy, tooling, and budget and encouragement to experiment. We're given time. So, encouraged to spend at least 1 hour a week upskilling. And then we actually have an all-in, company-wide weekly forum where we're sharing. So I think we're sort of maybe moving away from more traditional kind of innovation labs or design thinking workshops, but rather, freedom, decentralize it, go away, and then come together.
Yeah, I think it does. And
does that answer the question?
I think that's very industry specific, because it would be, you couldn't really superimpose on to the tech landscape. They're all entrepreneurs and, they like to be at the vanguard, as you say. But I do think we could take that into other industry sectors that are a little bit more stagnant, because people are looking for that more active approach to training. They want to have a proactive hand in it, and then they take obviously more ownership over it as well. So what about you, Danny? What would be your perspective there on learning and development?
Yeah, I suppose like a personal view I've got on it, it's just, if you look at like, again, not to harp too much on job ads and where the demand is, but like we saw such a boom after COVID, like so 2022 into 2023, there was pretty much 2 years worth of hiring done in one. But you speak to people in sales around that time and it was just, I need more hands on deck. The challenge was to get the people to do the job from what a lot of I've heard. So you had people coming in and they're relatively green and maybe they didn't necessarily get all the training they needed. And now the market's normalized a bit as well. It kind of just seems like it may be a bit harder to get things over the line nowadays than what it was a few years ago. So I think you hear a lot of appetite for people wanting, upskilling, training, just becoming more efficient. I think there might be definitely something there, I suppose. And I suppose from a 𝐿𝐸 perspective, the other hand, look, we've got a challenge, like a pro and a con, I suppose, but like the longevity of staff is a thing at 𝐿𝐸. So we kind of we're constantly looking at, well, how do you keep that person motivated if they're in the same job? And a lot of that is through upskilling, whether that's AI related, whether that's their craft, whether it's market specific stuff. I think we try and do a lot of that, but it's it's a hard.
You're absolutely right. That is, especially in sales. Not every salesperson wants to be a manager, so you need to keep them engaged long term. And even your heavy hitters that are bringing in great commission, money does drive them, but they're expecting that now, and they do still want to feel some growth. So trying to, I think being agile there is really important. What worked yesterday doesn't work tomorrow in terms of what engages people in learning and development. Salespeople in particular just don't want to feel, from what I'm seeing at a desk level, they don't want to feel alone. So even engaging in the conversation with them really makes them feel seen and a part of the team and a part of the process, which, as we know, salespeople like to really take a lot of ownership. So, okay, great. So what critical skills do you believe both junior and sales professionals need to succeed in 2025? I'll go with you, Danny.
Look, for me, it's soft skills. It's all soft skills, more or less. I think, again, from a very 𝐸𝐸-centric view, it's always the long sales cycle. So it's just being there. It's that consultative approach. It's like really understanding needs, what's going to make an impact, and then how do you help along that way. I'm a big fan of, the customers that you're dealing with, particularly if you've got long-standing relationships, you're a custodian of that relationship, and ultimately don't mess it up too much until the next person takes over. But yeah, that is kind of the core one I'd see. And I think the other thing, why it's so important, it's almost, there's this expectation that you've got so much data and insights at your fingertips that the bar from clients is now higher. They expect more. So I think being able to navigate that and tell a good story with that, I think that's just, key from my perspective.
What about you, Sam?
Soft skills is because everything else to me is table stakes now. And maybe the slight extension on soft skills is personal brand. I think people buy from people. You see, so many more examples of, I think, people doing a really good job on places like LinkedIn, if that's where your audience is, or other social media channels, and sort of pushing your own brand first and giving value first. That's huge. And I think people who are willing to put themselves out there and do that is great. You can't just be a sort of back end go-to-market engineer and tinkering away on tools. So, that's something that I've had to overcome myself, is really putting myself out there, posting on LinkedIn photos of myself. It's that's going outside my comfort zone. But I think those are the things that will be useful and that will sort of prove.
I agree. The personal branding piece is becoming more and more important and is out of my comfort zone as well, but I'm doing it. What about you, Danny? That would be a big thing with 𝐿𝐴𝐶 as well, I imagine, with your guys, and you would be seeing a lot of stats around that as well.
Yeah, completely. Look, the personal brand thing it's that. Like, even what we're doing now, it's like, it's how engaging you are at the end of the camera. And like, again, Sam's a lot better at this than I am. But I think like 𝐿𝐴𝐶 have invested in this company called Sourcer, and it's ultimately to champion the recruiter. So even like a bit of this is, again, Sam has brought this up already, but it's just that human element. It's just, there's like, for a lot of these interactions and times, people just want to speak to someone. They just want a person. So it's even started to pop up in the 𝐶 ads. If you go to 𝐶, you'll see who it's recruited by, and you'll see a face and a way to contact that person. So I think it's massive.
Yeah,
it's really,
I
really
agree.
important.
We have a video on ours, which again is out of my comfort zone, but we've got it there, and it does get a little bit more traction, I would say. I hope, anyway. Okay, so this is a good one. Obviously, this is one that we're all interested in. So I'll start with you, Danny, because I know, Sam, this is a passion of yours. How is AI transforming sales, and what specific impacts have you observed in the last 12 months?
Oh, big question. We've it's changed a lot. And again, not to labor our previous point, but I'm finding it a lot of clients' expectations are they expect you to know this stuff. They expect you to have infinite amount of data and insights, and you know it all, where there is a bit where it kind of puts a bit of pressure to make sure you can navigate it. At 𝐶, we've recently got an in-house generative AI ChatGPT type of model, where we can pull insights and data and do all of that. But it's interesting, I suppose, from a sales team's perspective. If like, some people really gravitate towards it, some people are kind of afraid of it. But there's a lot of, I suppose, it's getting that environment right to go, like, it's there to support. It's not so scary. If you need help, you can have help. We all just want to kind of just get a little bit better at what we do. But I think that, like, a core bit of it as well, from what I've seen so much, is like, AI can do so much, but it still requires that human proofreading, sanity checking. Like, it's right a lot of times, but it's not right every single time. And I think it's that Q&A piece can be dangerous, of where this could go. Just even in a small bits and pieces, you see kind of slip out. But we haven't had anything like that yet, but that's maybe the bit of paranoia in my head to go, oh, what could happen if this isn't all sanity checked?
Yeah, I agree. Sam, I think you've got some opinions there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that all makes sense. I think, definitely sanity checks, data security, those types of things. Again, I'm probably here assuming that those are taken care of and table stakes. But I mean, Danny, you did touch on it, right? Like, client expectations, and I got an email from Toyota the other day saying, "Hey, you bought a car from us 3 years ago. We've got a new model. Would you like to come and drive it?" I'm sort of like, well, I'm just in your database, right? You haven't personalized this to me in any way, shape, or form. So your question was around sort of how is it transforming sales teams. So I've talked about it at a high level. I was keen to give a couple of examples that we use, and it might give someone some inspiration. But so one example is what we do is we actually use AI to pre-screen leads before we reach out to them. So what we do is, use it to give us confidence scores on things like, are they actually in our target market? If so, great, move to the next step. Go and look at their website, tell me who their major clients are, and then put that major client in the subject of an email, for example. So, there's those little things where obviously maybe Toyota's not going to do that for me, but, getting an email that is, actually to do with me, to get you on the phone with a human is kind of the goal. And then another one, which is quite similar, a company we share an office with, they actually use AI to go and find and download and review the annual reports of prospects. And I've actually done this with 𝐿𝐴𝐚𝐻 yourselves. So, gone and looked at 𝐿𝐴𝐚𝐻's sustainability report, figured out your commitments. And then, you send an email to the sustainability leader at 𝐿𝐴𝐚𝐻 and say, hey, you guys said you would do this. How are you going with that? And, that's getting about a 20% call booking rate. So 1 in 5, and that's probably 10 to 20 times the industry average. So those are just a couple of practical examples, but Danny, that was the first point you made: client expectations, personalization, and then making sure there's a human involved.
It's a good way to get salesperson buy-in as well, because that saves them 15 minutes to an hour of research minimum.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And that personal touch is vital.
Well, and that was sort of the point I made, particularly around remuneration as well, right? If you can have a salesperson who what they are good at is getting their prospect on the phone, and they're motivated to do that because the prospect is further down the pipeline. I think that's why we are seeing better retention, better salaries, at least in our area in the tech space, because this is becoming quite common among my peer group. And the bigger enterprises will be adopting stuff like this. I was at Talent last week, and the recruitment example was automated CV screening, things like that. Again, that's it's got maybe some connotations attached to it, but if you can do it well and do it right, you can sort of get through those large amounts of applications and find appropriate candidates in your database really, really quickly.
Yeah, I think that all ties into everything that we've discussed. So training and development, we're afraid of AI until we learn to use AI. Then perhaps we go a little too far with AI, and then we have to train people to put the human element back in. And you're right, you can only use AI to write an email if you're going back in and rewriting that to suit your tone and making sure that you've got your own personal touch in there as well. But it's an interesting space, and there's lots of paranoia. I mean, I'm a paranoid person, but you're right. I have started using it more and more, and it is helpful, and that time saving. I'm also mercurial, so the time saving is exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so beyond AI, what other key trends do you expect will continue to make an impact by 2030? What about you, Sam?
Yeah, certainly on the same theme. So I think I talked about, at CarbonInvoice, we're investing in what are, traditionally seen as maybe more expensive, sort of pipeline brand building type things. And really what that comes down to is brand and community and human experiences, and you'll see even B2B brands becoming more sort of lifestyle type brands, brands that people are actually genuinely proud to associate themselves with. So that's what we're really trying to achieve at CarbonInvoice, is if you think about, can your brand cross the sort of the weekend barbecue threshold, so if I was at a barbecue in the weekend, would I talk about my experience with people to people or with 𝐿𝐴𝐚𝐻? So I think that's quite a nice heuristic, and ultimately it comes back to exactly what you said, Danny. It's trust, it's human, and so we're taking out people to plant real native trees. We're a software tech company, but our customer can go home and show their kids or just bring their kids along. And so I think I'm sort of at probably two extreme ends of the spectrum there. I'm a very heavy early adopter. I'm bullish on AI, but by the same token, I will then tomorrow I'll be out planting trees.
I think that's a good example of likely where it will trend to, in my opinion. And you're right. It will be the early part of the pipeline process, but ultimately it's going to be about that human connection. It's going to be about that face-to-face. It's going to be about that tactile. What are we giving back, and what is our brand saying to the world? So I definitely agree there. A big thank you to you both. I think it's great. Sam, you came on last minute, so I really appreciate that. Thank you for giving us some incredible insights into the market. If anyone watching today wants to reach out and get in touch with either Danny or Sam, you can visit the comments for all the information below. So thank you guys once again. It's been a great talk. Just a reminder that all the insights shared today are based off our 2025 Employment and Salary Trends Report. If you'd like a deeper dive into salaries, benefits, and work across your market, you can request your copy by scanning the QR code on the screen below or by clicking the link in the comments below. Lastly, whether you're looking to grow your career or build your team with the right talent, the People to People group can help. As an award-winning recruitment agency, we recruit across Australia and the United Kingdom with specialist teams in every major market, including sales, obviously, and legal. Across the ditch in New Zealand, we've proudly recruited for over 23 years through Frog Recruitment, with offices in Auckland and Wellington. And in South Australia, Edge Recruitment are Adelaide's leading specialists in property, real estate, and general administration roles. Contact details are on the screen now, or see links in the comments to reach out to one of our teams today. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining us for our special sales market update. See you next time.